In today's notes video, we're going to be reviewing some things that we've done in Chapter 8 so far, in preparation for tomorrow's quiz. Tomorrow's quiz will just be on the second half of Chapter 8, and but then we also have a complete whole Chapter 8 test on Wednesday, so we're going to be doing some questions from both of those assessments. Please get out a piece of paper, and I would like you to take notes to help you prepare for both of these assessments. Please understand that if all you do is write the answers and do not show any work, in some cases you will get no credit. In some cases you might get half credit, but you won't get full credit. So please, 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 whatever I do in these notes, I need you to answer the questions in the same fashion, showing the same amount of work in readable print. Thank you. Okay, let's do number one. So number one is going to be 3 plus t, and make that to where it doesn't look like two plus signs. 3 plus t is greater than 9. And what it's asking you to do from numbers 1 through 4 in tomorrow's quiz is you're going to determine which value makes the inequality true. Now, you might actually look at these values and know immediately which one is going to make it true, but if all you write is the answer, you're not getting full credit. So please do what I'm doing right now. You're going to write out each inequality. 3 plus, instead of writing t, you're going to replace it with 5 is greater than. Then you're going to write 3 plus 6 is greater than. Then you're going to write 3 plus 7 is greater than. Now we're going to go back and actually solve for the expression on the left, and then the last thing we'll do is see if the inequality is true or not. So everybody answer this question for me. What is 3 plus 5? That answer is 8. Very good. What is 3 plus 6? That answer is 9. What is 3 plus 7? That answer is 10. So if we complete the inequality and we write 8 is greater than 9, is that true? No, it's not true. So that can't be our answer. So what about 3 plus 6? We just discovered that was 9. If I write 9 is greater than 9, is that a true inequality? No. And if I write 10 is greater than 9, is that a true inequality? Yes. So the answer to this is actually going to be the number 7. So on your paper at some point you need to circle the number 7. You could circle a lot of things. Don't go crazy with the circling. I just went crazy with the circling. But make sure it's clear which one of these that you know is the correct answer. Okay, for the next section, it says to write an inequality for each constraint or condition. So we're going to do number 5 together. It says the banner is at least 5 feet wide. Now, it's really important to go back and maybe underline or circle important information. The phrase at least, does that mean that it could be 5 feet wide? Yes or no? Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to first come up with a variable. So if we're comparing a banner to 5 feet, what letter should we use? Go ahead and answer that for me. All right, I'm going to use the letter B, but really the actual variable letter doesn't matter. And then I'm going to write B and I'm going to write 5. All right, so just a moment ago, I asked about the word at least. So if something is at least 5 feet wide, does that mean it's wide enough in this situation? The banner is at least 5 feet wide. Will that work? And the correct answer is yes, that will work. So over here, we have to decide, is the banner going to be less than 5 feet, less than or equal to 5 feet, greater than 5 feet, or greater than or equal to 5 feet? What's the best answer to fit that situation? Answer that for me now. Okay, the correct answer is greater than, but also equal to. So if the banner is greater than 5 feet, that will work. But if it's exactly 5 feet, that also works too. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the next situation. Okay, the last example we're going to do for this quiz follows the directions. Solve each inequality and then represent the solution on the number line. So I've rewritten, since I'm showing how to use notebook paper with this, I've rewritten the inequality, and then neatly as I could, I drew the number line. If you're going to choose to print the quiz, if you have a home printer, that's fine. But if you have notebook paper or some other kind of paper that you can do your work on, just make sure that you write it neatly. Make sure that you label each of the numbers so I know which one you're talking about. Okay, so we want to get the y by itself. So how are we going to get rid of this plus 6? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. All right, so what we need to do is use the inverse property, and the opposite of plus 6 is minus 6. This creates a zero pair, which is going to cross out, and that will leave the y by itself. Y is greater than or equal to. Now, if we did minus 6 on this side, we're going to have to do the same on the other side. So it's going to be 8 minus 6 is 2. Okay, so my actual solution, which I'm going to circle, is y is greater than or equal to 2. So when I come put this on the number line, I have to ask myself, is 2 a possible answer? So that changes what the boundary point's going to look like. Should 2 be a closed boundary point or an open boundary point? Answer that for me now, please. 2 has to be a closed boundary point because 2 can be equal to 2. So that's one of the answers. Now it says y is greater than or equal to 2. Am I going to shade in the left side or am I going to shade in the right side? Go ahead and answer that for me now, please. Okay, we are going to do the right side because everything greater could be an answer. So this is where, if you're doing this on notebook paper, well, I didn't do that very neatly, but make sure that you're shading that so that it's clear that, to me, that you think everything greater than 2 is a possible answer. That is almost an example of how not to do it, but you can see how I just made the line darker on the right side. And so I know which side you think should be all the possible solutions. Okay, so we're going to solve each equation, and we're going to check the solution. Now, these are pretty straightforward. It is an open book test, so please make sure you go back in your textbook if you're not sure quite what to do. We're going to go ahead and look at a couple of these. Now, number 4, I want to give you a hint here. X divided by 4 is what this says. It looks like a fraction, but x is divided by 4. So ask yourself, what's the inverse of division? Go ahead and answer that for me. What's the inverse of division? Okay. So you're going to end up using multiplication for this. All right. Number 5. Sometimes fractions make us very nervous. So we're going to go ahead and talk our way through most of this problem here. The equation is y plus 1/6 is equal to 1/3. We can tell right away the denominators are not the same. So in order to combine or subtract or anything that we need to do with this, we're going to have to ultimately find some common denominators. Okay, so let's do the first step first. If we have plus 1/6, what's the inverse of addition? Answer that for me, please. Okay, subtraction is correct. So we're going to be having to subtract 1/6 on this side. So if we do that on this side, that's going to create the zero pair, and it will end up with just y left over. Y is equal to. But if whatever we do to this side, we have to do to that side. So we're going to actually subtract 1/6 as well. But that can't be done without finding a common denominator. So let's think about what is a factor that both 6 and 3 have in common? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. All right, so the least common denominator for both of these actually is the number 6. So you have to convert 1/3 into 6. So what number times 3 is equal to 6? Go ahead and answer that for me, please. You're right, times 2. So we have to actually multiply the top and the bottom by 2, so this becomes 2/6. 2/6 is equivalent to 1/3. So now we have 2/6 minus 1/6. I'm going to let you finish the rest of that one on your own. Okay. Okay, decimals also make some of us a little bit nervous. So let's talk about this one. Now, first thing we notice is the variable is actually on the right side, the right expression. That's okay. It's not always going to be on the left. So I'm going to go ahead and write the term 115 and 2/10 on the left, and then I'm going to write equals the coefficient 6 and 4/10 r. So if we have a coefficient, well, that means a number right next to a variable with nothing in between it. What operation does that indicate? Answer that for me now, please. Very good. That is multiplication. So what's the inverse of multiplication? Very good. That's division. So we're actually going to be dividing both sides. That was supposed to be a 4. We're going to divide both sides by 6 and 4/10. Okay. Now, so you're going to find some room near where the problem is. Remember, nice and neat so I can see all of your work and give you credit. And we're going to divide the number 115 and 2/10. We're going to divide that by 6 and 4/10. But is that how we divide division? Can we divide decimals? Excuse me. Do we divide with decimals with a decimal in the divisor? No. So we're going to have to make this into a whole number, and we do that by multiplying this side by 10. So if we multiply this side by 10 to move this one space over, we have to also move this one space over. So what you're actually going to end up dividing is 1052 is going to be divided by 64. And don't forget to put the decimal up here. For numbers 7 and 8, you're only going to need to read the situation and write the equation. So you're going to define the variable, you're going to draw a picture to help you figure out what kind of equation and write the equation. You don't have to solve 7 or 8. You just have to write the equation with a variable. For number 9, you're writing an inequality, but it also says for you to graph the inequality, so you do need to make sure that you do that. And the same thing for number 10. You come up with your own variable, write the inequality, and then make sure that you're graphing those inequalities. For numbers 11, 12, 13, and 14, you're solving the inequality. Okay, so very similar to what we've been doing, similar to the examples that we talked about previously on this video. One thing I'd like to point out is that please be careful about when you multiply and divide with negatives, the rules change just a little bit. So please go back and look in your book for what happens with that. For number 19, we don't have to actually come up with a variable because they've already said that in the problem. It says Holly earns $12 per hour at her job. Write an equation that can be used to find the number of hours H. So they've given H as the variable. She should work to earn $264. What property would you use to solve the equation? So we're going to solve the equation, but we're also going to say what property it is. So the first thing that we need to do is draw a picture because they've already given us the variable. So we're going to draw our line to represent the total amount. And then, well, do we know the total amount? Let's go back into the problem, and I want you to underline and look for the most important information that would determine the total amount that she needs to earn. What is that number? Question mark. Okay, that's going to be 264, and it's going to be written on top of our picture. And then as far as the amounts below, we're going to draw small boxes that represent the H for hours. We don't know how many hours, but we do know how much she earns each hour. And how much is that? Okay, if you said 12, you're correct. Okay, so if we have 12 repeating on the bottom, an unknown number of times, what operation is that going to be? Answer that for me, please. Okay, so we have the letter H, and that's correct, multiplication. So $12 times the number of hours that we don't know needs to be equal to 264. Okay, so that is the other side of the expression. That's supposed to be 6. Okay. So finally, in order to solve this, what property are we going to use? So we have to determine what was this again? What operation is that? And what is the inverse of that operation? So once you answer that, you're going to actually have the answer for what property it is. So which property of equality is going to help us solve for H and leave H by itself? Because we want H to be by itself down here. So something has to happen to both sides. All right, so make sure you do your very best on tomorrow's quiz and on Wednesday's test. These both will go on this 6 weeks, and every single assignment, correction, quiz, test, everything must be completed this week by Friday, no later than Friday at 6 p.m., because it is the end of the 6 weeks. Thank you.